Okay, good evening, everybody. Okay, now following on from Rupert Lowe's amazing inquiry into the grooming gangs, I have put together a 8 plus a couple of addendums and 6A and etc. etc. I put together a long that says it all series that by the end of it you'll be under no illusion at all what happens within the secret family court system and sexual abuse crimes against children. I'm scripted because you have to be very careful what you say legally in these kind of subjects, so it's all scripted. I'm not a reporter, as you all know. I'm not a journalist. I'm just a mum that can ride horses. So I'm going to start. I'm going to split it because it'd be too long in one podcast. So I'm going to split it. I'm going to keep my eye on the time, and so that it's in bites, probably about, I don't know, 12 minutes. So section 1, this channel exists because once you fall into the family court system, truth stops mattering, and I want to explain clearly and calmly how that happens. Okay, so I'm going to make loads of mistakes, but it's the information that I'm giving you that's the most important thing. It's not a jovial subject, even though I can be quite funny when I want to be, but this is deadly serious. So I am going to ask you all to subscribe, to like and to share, because I'm building this channel from nothing and it's only been going, I think, less than a month. And I think it's going quite well. People are watching my videos, and hopefully they're understanding a lot more. So okay, we'll get into it, and I'll keep my eye on the time, and I would love comments as well along the way. So okay, the introduction by design. I want to begin by saying this very clearly. I am deeply troubled by what my investigation has uncovered, and I need to be honest about something else too. For many years, I was looking in the wrong direction. Like so many other mothers, I believed the problem was that the laws were failing. I believed the police were failing to do their job. I believed social services were getting it wrong. I believed that if I spoke loudly enough, wrote enough letters, went to enough MPs, eventually someone would step in and fix it. I really did believe that. I believed the system was broken. What I did not understand then, but I understand now, is that the system is not broken. It is working exactly as it was designed to work. I always knew something wasn't right. I always knew there was a pattern. I always knew the outcomes were not accidental. But what I didn't know until now was how it worked, why it worked, and who it worked for. This podcast marks the point where that finally became clear to me. What I've uncovered is not incompetence. It is not misunderstanding. It is not mistakes. It is design. A design that generates revenue. A design that neutralises mothers. A design that avoids prosecuting serious crimes against children. A design that replaces truth with risk management. A design that rewards silence and punishes resistance. And once you see the design, you cannot unsee it. This is not a podcast about blame. It is not a podcast attacking individual social workers, judges, or police officers. Most people working inside this system genuinely believe they are doing a good job. because they are working inside a framework that tells them they are. But when a framework consistently produces the same devastating outcomes, children separated from protective mothers, children placed with abusers, mothers criminalised, silenced, imprisoned, or driven out of their country, then the problem is not the individual. The problem is the structure. This channel exists because I refuse to accept the official story that this was all just unfortunate, complex, or unavoidable. I refuse to accept that children disclosing sexual abuse should be ignored. I refuse to accept that mothers trying to protect their children should be punished. I refuse to accept that family courts should decide the fate of children without ever finding the truth. I followed the trail where it led. Through police delay, through family courts, through the CPS, through funding streams, through secrecy, through intimidation, through coercion, and through the systemic erasure of mothers from their children's lives. And what I found was not chaos. It was order. A very deliberate order. This podcast is the result of that investigation. Not to incite hatred, not to attack individuals, not to sensationalise pain, but to explain clearly, calmly and honestly how a system that claims to protect children is instead exposing them to the greatest harm of all. Because once you understand the design, you understand why nothing ever changes, why complaints go nowhere, why prosecutions collapse, and why mothers are told to move on. This is where that understanding begins. Section 2, historical, how disclosures are made to disappear. Section 2, okay, completely, yeah, don't worry. Just hang on in there. It all makes sense in the end. Okay, there is one word that mothers hear over and over again in these cases. That word is historical. It is used as if it explains everything. It is used as if it excuses everything. And it is used to shut mothers down. But what most people do not understand is this. In many cases, abuse is not historical at all. It is made historical by delay. For them, historical means inconvenience. In my own case, my daughter disclosed sexual abuse in the June. Her first formal police interview did not take place until November. By the time that interview happened, any physical or forensic evidence was long gone. And then I was told the allegations were historical. This is not an accident, this is a process. Mothers are actively discouraged from taking their children to doctors after disclosures. Some are explicitly threatened with immediate removal of their child if they do. Why? Because medical evidence creates records. Records create accountability, and accountability leads to criminal investigation. Instead, mothers are warned not to take their child to the GP, not to take them to hospital, not to seek psychological help. They are told they are overreacting, they are told they are anxious, they are told they are projecting. But if they act anyway, if they try to protect their child, they are accused of fabricating, exaggerating, or coaching. So the mother is paralysed. Once that happens, the case shifts. It moves away from the criminal justice system, where evidence, investigation and prosecution should happen, and into the family court system. And this matters because family courts are not truth-finding courts. I'm going to say that again. Family courts are not truth-finding courts. They do not exist to determine whether abuse happened. They exist to allocate risk. That single shift from criminal investigation to family court changes everything. In the criminal system, sexual abuse of a child is a serious crime. In family court, it becomes an allegation. In the criminal system, delay undermines prosecution. In family court, delay is used against the mother. And once a case is labelled historical, it is far easier to say there is no proof, there is no evidence, the risk now lies with the mother. This is how children's disclosures collapse. Not because children are lying, not because mothers are malicious, but because delay is built into the process. And when mothers realise this, when they understand that time itself is being used as a weapon, it becomes clear why so many were told years later to move on. They were never meant to win. Section 3. Family court is not a truth-finding court. This is one of the most important things the public does not know. Family courts are not truth-finding courts. They do not exist to establish what actually happened. They do not exist to determine whether abuse occurred. They do not exist to investigate crime. Family courts are risk allocation courts. That distinction changes everything. When a child discloses sexual abuse, most people assume the court's role is to find out whether that abuse is true. It is not. Instead, the court asks a different question entirely. Where does the risk now lie? And that question is not asked about the alleged abuser. It is asked about the mother. Once a mother raises abuse, she becomes the risk, not because she harmed her child, but because she has introduced allegations. If the court decides that the allegations cannot be proven, often because evidence has already been lost through delay, the focus shifts away from the child's safety and onto the mother's behaviour. She is assessed for emotional instability, anxiety, inability to support contact, failure to promote a positive relationship. Meanwhile, the alleged abuser is often described as calm, cooperative, compliant, willing to work with professionals. And all of this happens in a court that never set out to find the truth in the first place. This is how risk is reassigned. The system does not ask, did the abuse happen? It asks, which adult is easier to manage? And the answer is rarely the mother who is fighting to protect her child. This is why mothers are repeatedly told, you must support contact, you must put your feelings aside, you must not raise this again. Even when their child is begging not to go, even when their child is disclosing harm. Once the court decides that abuse is unproven, the child is required to behave as if it never happened. And if the child continues to disclose, the narrative shifts again. The child is said to be confused, influenced, anxious, coached, and the mother is blamed for that distress. In some cases, guardians have even stated that if a child continues to say that they were abused, professionals must tell the child that they were not. I'm just going to read that again. In some cases, guardians, I've heard this with my own ears, okay? I've heard it with my own ears. I was a witness to this statement. Guardians have even stated that if a child continues to say they were abused, professionals must tell the child that they were not. This is not safeguarding. This is silencing. So the system works like this. Abuse is disclosed. Delay removes evidence. Allegations are labelled historical or unproven. The mother becomes the risk. The child is required to deny their own experience. Once you understand that family courts are not truth-finding courts, the outcomes suddenly make sense. Children can be placed with abusers. mothers can be erased, and the system can claim it has acted lawfully, because truth was never the aim. So I'm going to leave it at the end of section 3. We're on 15 minutes already. Please follow the next podcast where I carry on with section 4, when criminal cases collapse. Thank you.